A Dutch teenager who was going bungee jumping in Spain died after a horrible misunderstanding. The instructor, who had poor English, said no jump, but she heard it as now jump and ended up jumping straight to her death. This is exactly why commands are never supposed to be given with a no or a don't. President JFK's convertible wasn't scrapped when he was assassinated in 1963. They just welded a roof on top and it was used by the next 4 presidents right up until 1977. Mohammed Bajay was an Iranian serial killer who raped and killed at least 40 young boys in the early 2000s. But his crimes only gained worldwide attention because of the way in which he was executed. He was stoned by an angry mob, lashed 100 times, stabbed by the brother of one of his victims, and then hanged. Slovenian woman Julia Adlisic cut off her own hand with a table saw and purposely left it at home when she went to the hospital. She did this to receive $1.2 million in payout from the 5 insurance companies she signed up for. But instead of getting paid, she was sentenced to 2 years in jail for insurance fraud. Anyone who moves to Villas Las Estrellas in Antarctica must have their appendix preemptively removed because the nearest hospital is over 600 miles away. This is an image of a patient with claustrophobia who panicked during a CT scan. This little girl is the stepdaughter of serial killer John Wayne Gacy. Directly under her bedroom was the crawl space where John stuffed the bodies of 26 of his victims, meaning she literally slept over a graveyard. Human injuries from stingrays are extremely rare and almost never fatal. When Steve Irwin was killed by one in 2006, he was only the second reported stingray fatality in Australia since 1945. It was a total freak accident that he only died from because the barb went directly into his heart. In 1921, spiritualists Thomas Bradford and Ruth Doran wanted to test whether it was possible to communicate with the dead. So naturally, Bradford killed himself via carbon monoxide poisoning and planned to appear in front of Doran as a ghost. He never did. In 2014, scientists found a giant 30,000-year-old virus in Russian permafrost. After thawing out, the virus was still infectious and even began killing amoebas. This raised concerns that melting or drilling into Arctic ice could unleash previously undiscovered pathogenic viruses. In 2002, 2 airplanes collided over Germany, killing all 71 total passengers on board. 2 years later, the air traffic controller who was responsible was stabbed to death by a Russian man named Vitaly Kaloyev, whose wife and 2 kids were victims of the crash. Kaloyev was only sentenced to 2 years in prison and was hailed as a hero back in Russia. In 2019, a British teenager went blind after maintaining a horrendous diet for several years. It consisted of French fries, white bread, Pringles, and the occasional slice of ham. In 2013, Disney abandoned their policy of letting disabled people skip lines at their theme parks. This was because too many people were hiring disabled tour guides to help them skip the lines. In 2003, Kenneth Maxwell called 911 to report a house fire that he came across while driving home from work. But his voice suddenly cut off during the call, and when firemen arrived at the scene, Kenneth was found shot dead in his car. It turned out the fire was created to cover up a double homicide, and the killer saw Kenneth making the call. Morticians often use these spiky contacts to keep the eyes of the dead closed during funeral viewings. During World War II, one of the first Japanese cities that the US planned on nuking was its former capital, Kyoto. The only reason it wasn't bombed was because US Secretary of War Henry Stimson spent his honeymoon there and thought it was a nice place. So instead of Kyoto, they went with Nagasaki. These are photos of former Ukrainian President Viktor Yushchenko before and after he was poisoned by Vladimir Putin in 2004. He and his family believe the assassination attempt was ordered because Yushchenko wanted Ukraine to integrate more with the rest of Europe. A doctor chronicled the progression of Alzheimer's disease in one of his patients by collecting her signatures on medical forms over the years. Ever since the Taliban takeover, the price for a kidney on the Afghan black market has dropped from $4,000 to $1,500. This is because so many people have been selling their own kidneys just so they can afford to feed their children. Such high supply of the organ has caused the price to plummet in short time. In 1981, Japanese college student Issei Sagawa invited over his classmate Renee Hartfelt for dinner at his apartment. He told the 25-year-old Dutch student that he would help her translate some poetry for a school assignment, but his real plan was much darker. As Hartfelt was reading from a poem, Sagawa shot her in the back of the head and killed her instantly. He spent the next 2 days eating her flesh so that he could absorb her health and beauty, characteristics which he felt he lacked. It was a plan that was decades in the making, but it only took police 2 days to arrest him. But a French court deported him to Japan, where he avoided serving any jail time due to a legal technicality. He remains free to this day and even says he wants to taste human flesh again before he dies. An Indian actor named Shyam risked his life to transform for a role. He went 9 straight days without sleep so that the tissues under his eyes would swell up. These photos show what 4 years of fighting in World War II did to the face of a young Soviet man. As the museum caption reads, "The first face looks at you, the second face looks through you." Since 9/11, 4 times as many U.S. service members and veterans have died by suicide than have been killed in combat. In 2008, Chinese milk company Sanlu tainted their baby formula with melamine so that they could pass quality control. As a result, at least 6 infants died from kidney stones and hundreds of thousands more got sick. This photo shows main culprit Gang Jinping begging for forgiveness during his trial before he was executed by firing squad. It was such a massive scandal that Chinese people still refuse to buy baby formula domestically. King Tut is the only ancient Egyptian mummy known to have been mummified with an erection. His ancient member unfortunately broke off soon after the tomb was discovered. The 1897 Battle of Sarigari is considered to be one of the greatest final stands in history. 21 soldiers of the Sikh regiment fought off an army of 10,000 Afghans and killed 600 of them before being defeated. In 1881, 20th U.S. President James Garfield survived an assassination attempt, but one of the 2 bullets pierced his intestine. As a result, he was unable to hold down any food he ate, so doctors had to resort to something drastic. For the final 3 months of his life, the president was fed egg yolks, milk, and whiskey through his butthole. In the early 2000s, CEO Stuart Parnell created a salmonella outbreak by purposely tainting his peanut products to save some cash. As a result of his greediness, 9 people died and hundreds of others got sick. This photo shows Parnell refusing to talk when a member of Congress challenges him to eat his own products in front of a committee. The Altamira man is an extremely well-preserved fossil of a Neanderthal who fell down a sinkhole over 100,000 years ago. Discovered in 1993, experts are still working on a way to extract the skeleton from the calcite without damaging it. Stephen King would do so much cocaine while writing that he had to stuff cotton up his nose to prevent blood from dripping onto his typewriter. There are various books that he doesn't even remember writing, including the 1981 classic Cujo. In 1989, the Buffalo Sabres goalie had his neck sliced by another player's skate, which severed his carotid artery. It resulted in so much blood loss that 11 fans fainted, 2 had heart attacks, and 3 players uked on the ice. His life was saved by the team trainer, who luckily served in the Vietnam War as a combat medic. When he was executed in 1793, King Louis XVI was so fat for the guillotine that it took 2 attempts to fully cut through. About 10,000 Facebook users die every day. Eventually, the number of dead profiles will outnumber the living ones, and Facebook will become a digital graveyard. This is what a Japanese execution chamber looks like, where convicts are killed by long drop hanging through a trap door. In Japan, prisoners on death row aren't told when they'll be executed until 1 hour before it happens.